Caleb Sterling traded 10 years of his life for a system to steal my tech, the Aegis Protocol. He thought he'd won. He believed he could strip me of my achievements, my reputation, and my very soul, just like he did in my previous life. But what he didn't know was that I had returned from the dead, and I'd already planted the seeds of his destruction within the labyrinth of his stolen code. If he wanted to gamble with his life, I'd make sure he lost the house. Ethan, Mom and Dad said if you put Caleb's name as the lead architect on the filing, they'll finally let you legally change your last name to Sterling. In the living room of our Greenwich estate, my sister, Chloe, sat across from me, sliding a folder across the mahogany table with a smug smile. I looked at the document, a death warrant disguised as a promotion, and my hands trembled. I was back. I had been pulled back through time to the exact day Caleb made his deal with that shadow. I forced my breathing to steady and pushed the folder back. Not yet, I said, my voice cold. Caleb isn't up to speed. I need to walk him through the current build and let him integrate with the dev team for a few days first. Those aren't mutually exclusive, Ethan, Chloe countered, her eyes narrowing. I pivoted quickly. The Sterling name is under a lot of scrutiny right now with the SEC. We shouldn't invite unnecessary rumors about nepotism. It's better if he earns the optics of being a genius first. I turned to look at Caleb, who was standing by the window, playing the part of the modest, misunderstood foster brother perfectly. He looked startled, then a flicker of triumph crossed his face. He'd gotten exactly what he wanted, access. Ethan, look, I don't want to cause trouble, Caleb said, his voice dripping with faux humility. Ethan's right, Chloe. If I can't prove I'm a value add, it'll just hurt the family's brand. Besides, I'm supposed to be the prodigy here. I can't let the firm down. I suppose that makes sense, Chloe said, nodding thoughtfully. Caleb is always so selfless, Ethan. You should learn from his devotion to the family. She reached out and affectionately ruffled Caleb's hair. Watching the golden boy and his enabler act out this farce made my skin crawl. In my last life, signing that document was the beginning of the end. After the Sterlings rescued me from the foster system, I had turned down a fellowship at DARPA just to prove my loyalty to them. I developed the Aegis Protocol, a quantum encryption shield that would have secured the nation's digital infrastructure for half a century. Chloe had manipulated me, promising I'd be a true Sterling if I shared the credit with Caleb. I believed her. It was a trap. On the day of a national cybersecurity summit, I found my local environment corrupted. All my data had turned into gibberish. The presentation was minutes away, and I was spiraling. I ran to the green room to find Caleb, hoping he had the backup drive. Instead, I heard them whispering, Caleb, is this system of yours for real? You really gave up 10 years of your life to swap Ethan's work for yours? If this leaks, the Sterlings are finished. Relax, Chloe, Caleb had answered. The system uses forces beyond their comprehension. Everything is rewritten. Even the timestamps on the server will show I finished it a week before he did. I had burst in, demanding answers, but they just looked at me like I was insane. When I tried to play a recording for the judges, they treated it like a mental breakdown. Trading life for code? Ethan, do you hear yourself? This isn't a sci-fi novel, the lead architect had told me. Even when they checked the lab's local logs, the timestamps showed Caleb had committed the core logic 5 days before I had. The true versus false genius debate trended on X for weeks. Because of my reputation, some people stood by me, especially my assistant and girlfriend, Sophie Jenkins. With her family's legal backing, I sued Caleb. But Caleb, backed by Shadow Tech, sacrificed another year of his life to fabricate evidence that I had sold the tech to a foreign power. I was branded a traitor. I went to a federal penitentiary, while Caleb was hailed as a national hero. The day he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Technology, he visited me in my cell. How does it feel to lose everything, Ethan? This is the price for trying to compete with me for the Sterling inheritance. Then, to break me completely, he leaned in. By the way, stop waiting for Sophie. She died in a tragic apartment fire last night. There's no one left to save you. I snapped. I killed him with a sharpened toothbrush before the guards could pull me off. I was sentenced to death. As the first needle entered my arm, I felt a searing rage, and then darkness. Now I was back, and I was going to send every single one of them to hell. I hope you're a man of your word, Chloe said, her voice dripping with a warning. If you try to pull any stunts, you'll be out on the street before dinner. She led Caleb out of the room, both of them wearing looks of smug victory. I sat on the sofa, mentally triaging the situation. Caleb's system was powerful, but it had a flaw. It needed a physical anchor, a medium, and it required a form of consent or affirmation from a victim. In the previous life, the signed document was my affirmation. Later, I lost my vintage signet ring, a gift from my old mentor at the orphanage. Caleb had stolen it. I decided to play into his hands. I would provide the medium, but I'd lace it with a poison he wouldn't detect until it was too late. I had to act the part of the prey. I left the estate and drove to my lab. I hesitated at the door. Sophie was inside. In my last life, I never got to give her the life I promised. I remembered when she, the daughter of the Jenkins shipping empire, had asked me out in front of the whole campus. I'm just a kid from the system, I'd told her. Why me? Because I like you alive, she had said with a laugh. I had been naive then. I thought my talent was enough. Even when Sophie warned me about the Sterling's reputation for being sharks, I didn't listen. I was too drunk on the dream of a real family. I stepped into the lab. Sophie was there, meticulously prepping the afternoon's data sets. She didn't hear me come in. I felt a wave of guilt so strong it nearly choked me. I walked up behind her and pulled her into a hug. She gasped, startled, then relaxed when she saw it was me. She playfully punched my chest. Ethan, you scared the hell out of me. Say something next time. I'm sorry, I choked out. She pulled back, her eyes searching mine. Ethan, what happened? Did they do something to you again? Her voice got sharp. We should just leave. They've been blocking your funding for months, and now that the Aegis protocol is actually working, they want to slap Caleb's name on it? I swear, I wonder if we're even their biological son. I took a deep breath, stroking her hair. They want me to give Caleb half the credit. What? Sophie's face flushed with anger. The Sterlings have no shame. If you give them an inch, they'll take the whole mile. Don't be an idiot, Ethan. I know, I whispered, leaning in. That's why I need you to help me find a secret secondary lab. Somewhere off the grid. A ghost lab. Exactly. The project is finished. I need you to register a new entity for the Aegis protocol. Do it fast. Use your family's lawyers and secure the funding. Keep it silent. In this timeline, the Jenkins family was still a powerhouse, unlike the last life where the Sterlings crushed them after Caleb's breakthrough. Are you sure about this? She asked. Trust me, I said, kissing her forehead. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for us. I squeezed her cheek gently. They want to pick my bones clean, Sophie. If I don't move now, they'll destroy us both. Fine, she said, swatting my hand away with a smirk. Glad you finally woke up. I'll call my dad right now. Wait, I added. I need your dad to look into something else for me. Something private. We split up. She went to secure the new facility, and I took an encrypted drive containing the core logic to a specialized antique shop in the city. If I was going to deal with supernatural tech, I needed a different kind of insurance. I returned to the Sterling estate later that evening. The atmosphere was thick. My father, Thomas Sterling, was sitting in the study, looking like someone had just stolen $1 billion from him. My mother, Eleanor, sat across from him with a serene, practiced smile. I knew better now. Eleanor was the coldest of them all. She was the one who hated me the most, the one who orchestrated my downfall with the most surgical precision. As I stood in the foyer, Eleanor rose with effortless grace. Ethan, you're back. Don't just stand there. Wash up for dinner. We've all been waiting for you. Sure, I said, playing the obedient son. I realized now that her waiting for you comment wasn't an olive branch. It was a jab to irritate Thomas and Chloe, making them resent me for holding up the meal. I used to be grateful for her mediation. Now I knew she was just sharpening the knives. At the dinner table, I stayed silent, eating quickly and quietly. Look at him, Chloe sneered, eyes full of disdain. Eating like he's never seen a steak before. Slow down, Ethan, you making a scene? I ignored her. I needed the energy, but Caleb couldn't resist. Chloe, leave him alone, Caleb said softly. He's been in the lab all day. It's natural to be hungry. Working on what? Chloe snapped. Probably just staring at a wall in that dusty basement. I chewed my steak. If I was just staring at a wall, where did the Aegis protocol come from? I finished, set my fork down, and stood up. I'm done. I'll head upstairs. Sit down. Thomas slammed his hand on the table. Your elders are still eating. Where's your respect? You have no class. Thomas, honey, take it easy. Eleanor interjected. He's probably just tired. He wants a rest. Thomas scoffed. Tired? We're all tired. I run a Fortune 500 company, and he acts like he's the only one doing anything. He can't even handle a simple request to help his brother. I looked down, affecting a pose of submissive shame. Inside, I was laughing. They were trying to break my spirit, performing a loyalty test to see if I'd still wag my tail. Dad, don't be mad at Ethan, Caleb said, standing up and fidgeting with his napkin. It's my fault. I'm the one who's behind. Maybe we should just forget the summit. I'll wait for the next one. The innocent little brother routine made my stomach turn. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the encrypted drive. I brought the drive, I said, cutting him off. I'm going to walk Caleb through the core logic tonight. Tomorrow, I'll take him to the lab and introduce him as the lead architect. That's more like it, Chloe said, leaning back. Good boy. Maybe you're finally learning. Thomas, tell him about the car. Thomas grunted. There's an old BMW 7 Series in the back of the garage. It's 10 years old, but it runs. It's yours. 10 years old. The Sterlings were worth billions, and they were tossing me a scrap heap as a reward for the most valuable cybersecurity tech in history. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Chloe, I said with forced gratitude. I'll do my best for Caleb. I led Caleb to the library. This room had been forbidden to me in my first life. Even maids were allowed in, but I was told I'd lose something important. Chloe followed us like a prison guard, terrified I might trick her precious brother. It didn't matter that she didn't understand a word of quantum physics. She just wanted to watch. Caleb was supposedly a prodigy, but that was a lie bought with sterling money. He'd paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for ghostwritten papers. He was a theoretical fraud. When it came to actual implementation, he was useless. I explained the code to him, half-truths mixed with complex, redundant logic. I intentionally overcomplicated the math, making sure he couldn't see the backdoor I was building. Caleb nodded along, pretending to be a genius. It was pathetic. Late into the night, I nudged them both awake. They had fallen asleep over the blueprints. Wake up. That's enough for tonight. This should be enough to convince the team tomorrow. Wait. I fell asleep. Caleb blinked, wiping drool from his chin. It's dry stuff, I said. Anyone will be bored. Did you leave anything out, Ethan? Chloe asked suspiciously. You're not trying to embarrass him, are you? I handed her the drive. Here, keep it. He can review it whenever he wants. Caleb pulled back like the drive was hot. No. Ethan, you keep it. I trust your explanation. He shot a glance at Chloe. Chloe, it's late. Let's get some sleep. Fine, she said. Let's go. I watched them leave, a cold smile forming. They were lying. They were going to do the ritual tonight. They only wanted me to teach Caleb, so he wouldn't look like a total moron when the experts questioned him later. I went to my room, changed into my running gear, and left the house under the guise of a night run. I left the drive, my signet ring, and an old fountain pen on my desk, baits in a trap. I found a hidden spot in the garden, pulled out my phone, and opened a feed for the hidden cameras I'd installed. Sure enough, a shadow crept into my room. Chloe, he's gone. Good. We don't need to spray this time. I realized then, in my last life, they hadn't just relied on my trust. They had drugged me to ensure I slept through the ritual. They looked at the items on my desk. Look at this, Caleb whispered. He even left his precious ring. He's so pathetic. Caleb, are you sure this works? Trust me, Chloe. This is how I got the blueprints for the Coldwell merger. No one ever found out. My eyes widened. So that's how the Coldwell family was ruined. Caleb had used the system to steal their trade secrets. That was another nail for his coffin. Caleb bypassed the pen and picked up the signet ring. I grinned. The ring was perfect. The poison was ready. In my last life, in the weeks before my execution, I had shared a cell with a strange old man. He had looked at me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Kid, he had said, do you want to learn a trick? A way to shift the tracks of your life. I had nothing to lose. I said yes. He touched my forehead, and I blacked out. I woke up on the day of my execution, but my mind was filled with symbols, sigils, and the mechanics of the unseen. The old man had called it applied metaphysics. To me, a quantum physicist, it looked like a way to manipulate the probability fields of subatomic particles through intent. Caleb was about to learn that you don't play with probability unless you know the math. Chloe, stand back, Caleb whispered. Don't make a sound. Chloe nodded, her usual arrogance replaced by a visible tremor of fear. Caleb closed his eyes. A dark, flickering shadow manifested in the center of the room. It wasn't a system like in a video game. It was a void, a presence that felt like static on the skin, even through a screen. The entity spoke in a voice like grinding metal. User, state your exchange. Caleb's face twisted with greed. I offer 10 years of my life. In exchange, I want every achievement and the complete Aegis protocol technology from the owner of this ring. Scanning. A crimson beam shot out from the void, scanning the signet ring. Chloe covered her mouth to keep from screaming. Target identified. Ethan Vance. Current achievement. The Aegis protocol. Binding to medium. Once the contract is signed, the process is irreversible. Proceed. Proceed. Caleb shouted. The ring floated into the air, glowing with a sickly, distorted red light. After a few seconds, the light faded and the ring dropped back onto the desk. Contract established. 5 years of the life force collected as a deposit. The remainder will be taken upon completion of the transfer. I watched Caleb's face. He looked slightly more mature, perhaps a bit more weary, But the loss of 5 years wasn't immediately obvious on a 28-year-old. I pulled a paper sigil from my pocket and touched it with a lighter. It burned without smoke. The trap was set. In the world of quantum field theory, everything is connected. If he wanted to entangle his life with my work, I'd ensure he entangled it with the decay I'd hidden in the code. On the screen, the shadow vanished. Caleb, are you okay? Chloe rushed to him. I'm fine, he smirked. It just takes the years. It doesn't hurt. Good, Chloe breathed. She stepped closer, her face flushed. Do you want to come to my room tonight? I froze. My hand hovered over the off button. I watched as Caleb wrapped an arm around her waist, his expression predatory. Of course, Chloe. I shut the phone off. I had seen enough. The Sterlings weren't just a den of thieves. They were a pit of vipers. A greedy father, a cold-blooded mother, a parasitic brother, and a twisted sister. Well, their clock was ticking. The Global Cybersecurity Summit was their funeral. The day of the competition arrived. I walked into the convention center holding Sophie's hand. While we waited in the VIP lounge, I leaned back on the sofa, resting my head in her lap. I was exhausted. Between calibrating the ghost lab and dealing with Caleb's constant pestering, I'd barely slept. I had helped Caleb by officially signing over the original lab to him. His system had transferred the results, giving him a perfect copy of the Aegis protocol. But his copy was a time bomb. I had spent the last week making his life miserable under the guise of tutoring. I gave him the math in fragments, out of order, making sure he had no logical foundation. He looked terrible. The 10-year sacrifice was starting to show. His skin was sallow, and faint wrinkles were appearing around his eyes. The Sterlings, believing I was now useless, had kicked me out of the estate the night before. I didn't hold back. I let them have it, announced I was starting my own firm, and told them I was done. Ethan, don't think you're special, Chloe had spat. You're nothing without the Sterling name. You're not even a shadow of Caleb. Ethan, honey, Eleanor had said, her voice a fake weep. Don't do this. Kneel and apologize to your father, and we'll forget this ever happened. You ungrateful brat. Thomas had roared. If you walk out that door, you're dead to this family. I didn't answer with words. I walked up to Caleb, who was busy trying to look smug, and I slapped him so hard his head snapped back. The room went dead silent. You, Chloe started. I didn't let her finish. I grabbed Caleb by the collar and landed 10 more punches, one for every year of my life he'd stolen in the other timeline. I stopped when my knuckles were sore and Caleb's face was a swollen mess. I picked up my bags and walked out. Now, at the summit, the Sterlings were across the room, glaring at me. Ethan, you have some nerve showing your face here. Chloe marched over, Caleb trailing behind her with a bruised, bandaged face. I didn't even look up. I just stood, walked over to Caleb, and slapped him again. Caleb, Chloe shrieked, catching him. What is wrong with you? Why you keep hitting him? We're related by blood, Chloe, I said calmly. Hitting my sister in public would look bad for the family brand. So I hit the foster kid instead. It's a compromise. Say one more word, and I hit him again. Try me. You slap. Ethan, stop, slap. Chloe, please. Shut up. Caleb whined, clutching his jaw. My face just stopped throbbing. Chloe turned bright red, her chest heaving, but she went silent. An official walked into the lounge. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Vance, you're up. Please move to the stage. Let's go, I said to Sophie. The summit was being live-streamed to millions. It was the gold standard for transparency. Each contestant would present, then face a live stress test. Caleb was ahead of me in the rotation. When he announced the Aegis protocol, the judges, some of the most respected names in the field, were visibly stunned. A perfect defense against any known cyber intrusion. Caleb basked in the applause. He shot me a triumphant look. I just clapped along, smiling. Go on, Caleb. Climb higher. The fall is longer that way. The judges signaled for the stress test. 20 elite hackers from the National Security Agency were ready to assault Caleb's build. Just as they were about to begin, Caleb held up a hand. Wait, I have something to say first. Yes. Dr. Arthur Milton, my old mentor and the lead judge, leaned forward. What is it, Caleb? Caleb's hand trembled slightly, but he spoke with conviction. I've spent years researching the intersection of quantum states and encryption, but some people have no ethics. They use proximity and trust to steal the work of others. He pointed a shaking finger at me. That person is Ethan Vance. He stole my research. I acted the part perfectly. I looked shocked, confused, and hurt. Beside me, Sophie rolled her eyes and gave my side a sharp pinch. The crowd erupted. Ethan Vance stole it? I don't buy it, someone whispered. He's a legend in the grad program. I don't know, another voice countered. He never finished his PhD. He just disappeared into the Sterling labs. Maybe he hit a wall and got desperate. I don't believe it. Caleb Sterling has been buying his way through journals since freshman year. Caleb's face darkened as he heard the murmurs. He hadn't expected the public to be so split. Dr. Milton silenced the room. Caleb, that is a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Proof doesn't matter, Caleb said, his voice rising with arrogance. Let Ethan come up here. He claims to have the same tech. Let's compete. The truth will be in the code. He looked at me, his eyes wild. Are you man enough to come up here, Ethan? I stood up and walked toward the stage. Sophie cupped her hands around her mouth. Go get him, Ethan. Crush him. I reached the podium and looked at Dr. Milton. I accept the challenge, but I want up the ante. I don't want 20 hackers. I want the entire cybervigilance front to attack my build simultaneously. The room went silent. The CVF was a global network of thousands of white hat hackers. Ethan, you have lost your mind. Chloe shouted from the front row. You're going to embarrass the Sterling name. Withdraw now, or you're out of the family for good. You ungrateful son. Thomas added, this is a disgrace. The judges whispered among themselves. Are you serious, Ethan? Dr. Milton asked. The CVF could bring down a small country's grid. If we're testing a shield, let's see if it can withstand a storm, I replied. Fine, Dr. Milton said. 5 minutes for the CVF to mobilize. I began my setup. Caleb sneered at me, giving his family a thumbs up. 5 minutes later, the assault began. The CVF didn't hold back. Within seconds, Caleb's screen began to flicker. My Aegis protocol wasn't just a shield. In my last life, it was passive. In this life, I had rebuilt it using black hole logic. It didn't just block, it absorbed the energy of the attack and redirected it. But before my results could even be tallied, a roar came from Caleb's side of the stage. His monitor was filled with scrolling red text. The Aegis protocol had failed. It hadn't just failed, it had collapsed into gibberish. What? No. Caleb screamed. I did everything. I followed the logic. This shouldn't be happening. He turned to me, his face contorted. You did this. You sabotaged me. I pushed his hand away. Caleb, we're on a global stage. Are you accusing me of hacking the most secure server in the country while I was standing right here? I know it's... Are you questioning the integrity of the military guards who watched us upload our code? The commanding officer in charge of security glared at Caleb. His hand moved to his holster. Look, someone yelled. The CVF was being decimated. On my screen, thousands of connection lost, messages were appearing. The shield was counterattacking. It's not just holding, a judge whispered. It's winning. This is impossible, Caleb muttered. It's a fraud. He's cheating. I turned to him, my voice cold and loud enough for every microphone to catch. Caleb, you didn't steal my research. You stole a trap. And now, the truth comes out. You're lying. I looked at Dr. Milton. Sir, please have your team decompile the hidden layer in Caleb's code. Line 1, 400. Do it, Dr. Milton ordered. A minute later, the giant screen behind us refreshed. A single line of text appeared in bold white letters. My name is Caleb Sterling, and I am a plagiarist. Caleb's face went white. Chloe looked like she was about to faint. Translate the rest, I said. The screen refreshed again with more hidden strings I'd buried in the dead code he'd copied. I have a sick secret with my sister, Chloe. Thomas Sterling is a corporate thief. Ethan Vance is the true architect. The room exploded into chaos. The dead code I had used was designed to remain hidden unless the system was under extreme stress. The CVF's attack had provided exactly that. The audience was in a frenzy. Did it say he has a secret with his sister? I heard they were seen at a hotel in the Hamptons last month. I saw them kissing at the charity gala in the corner. Caleb was hyperventilating. He was trying to contact the system, but I knew my signet ring, the medium, was currently being purged by the metaphysical feedback I'd set up. Dr. Milton stood up, his face grim. Caleb Sterling, the evidence of plagiarism is undeniable. Security, take him into custody for questioning regarding corporate espionage. No, you can't. Caleb screamed as the soldiers moved in. I didn't steal it. Our directions were just similar. Shut up, the colonel snapped, pinning Caleb's arms behind his back. You'll have plenty of time to explain to the FBI. Chloe tried to rush forward, but she was blocked by a line of soldiers. She looked toward her parents, but she saw the true face of the Sterlings. What a disgrace, Thomas shouted, standing up and pointing at Caleb. I can't believe we let this fraud into our home. He's a parasite. Eleanor nodded, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Caleb, you've broken my heart. I raised you like my own, and you reward us with this? I'm so disappointed. Dad? Mom? Chloe looked at them in horror. Be quiet, Chloe. Thomas barked. If you hadn't been so enabling of his behavior, we wouldn't be in this mess. You're just as much to blame. Chloe, I told you to keep your distance from him, Eleanor added, effectively throwing her own daughter under the bus. Look at those rumors. Is it true? Are you that disgusting? I watched the Sterlings tear each other apart. It was a beautiful sight, but I wasn't done. I stepped to the podium and connected my phone to the display. Since we're clearing the air, I said, let's talk about the rest of the family. The screen filled with documents, tax evasion records, evidence of Thomas Sterling hiring hackers to steal trade secrets from competitors, proof of the Coldwell merger being a result of corporate theft, and then the final blow, evidence that Eleanor Sterling had orchestrated the kidnapping of her own biological son, me, to keep Thomas from finding out about her affair, only to find me years later when she needed a liver donor for her favorite child, Caleb, and the records of the private investigator she'd hired to dispose of Thomas's former mistress. The room was paralyzed. You bitch! Thomas roared, lunging at Eleanor. You killed her? Eleanor didn't flinch. She clawed at his face. You were going to leave me for that waitress. I did what I had to do to protect my inheritance. I hate you, Thomas. I've always hated you. I'll kill you. The police moved in, dragging them apart. Chloe sat on the floor, staring at a paternity test on the screen that showed she and Caleb were actually half-siblings, sharing Eleanor as a mother. She clutched her stomach, looking like she was going to be sick. The summit was over. The Sterling Empire was dead. I was awarded the first-place prize and a permanent seat on the National Technology Council. I was hailed as a national hero, the title Caleb had stolen from me in the past. But the Sterling's misery was just beginning. Thomas and Eleanor were both sentenced to life in prison for a litany of crimes including murder, conspiracy, and racketeering. Chloe was sentenced to 15 years for corporate espionage and tax fraud. Between the legal fallout and the mental collapse from the truth about Caleb, she lost the child she was carrying. I was kind enough to pay for her stay in a high-security psychiatric ward, where I made sure the walls were covered with photos of Caleb to keep her company. As for Caleb, he suffered the most. The day after his arrest, he aged 50 years in a single night. His skin began to rot, his organs failing. He screamed at the empty air in his hospital room. You can't do this. I'm the user. I'm the host. The system had fed on him. Without my success to sustain the contract, the void had turned on the only source of energy left, Caleb's remaining life. I visited him one last time. He was a husk, a living corpse. He couldn't even speak. He just stared at me with watery, terrified eyes as his skin literally sloughed off. He died 3 days later. The Sterling assets were seized by the government. I was allowed to keep a small portion of the legitimate earnings, enough to make me a multi-millionaire several times over. Sophie and I planned a trip. We were going to see the world before I returned to lead the Aegis Protocol's implementation. The night before we left, she turned to me. Ethan, I had the weirdest dream a few weeks ago. I dreamt you were in prison and everything was on fire. How did you know? I asked. Know what? That the universe gave me a second chance. She laughed and shoved me. Shut up. You and your sci-fi stories. I smiled. Let her think it was a story. On a rainy night, as I was out picking up dinner for us, a shadow blocked my path in the alleyway. It was an old man with a long white beard leaning on a cane. He looked at me and grinned. Well, kid, he said, I didn't lie, did I? Your tracks have shifted. He winked. So, are you ready to become my apprentice for real this time? Story complete.